Okay, today's video we're going to do a oil change on my 1972 Dodge Demon classic car. This car was made only 2 years in the 70s, 1971 and 1972. And I believe just a couple years ago they came out with the Demon. And it definitely wasn't a sports car. As you can see, this is the rear. It looks like that the rear taillights are jail bars to me. I've got this car restored about 8 years ago, and it's a daily driver, and it sits out in the sun. So as you can see, I'm also doing some body work to it, getting it ready for a facelift, another paint job. I hope to have that done. I might do a video on that too. About a handful of places I noticed some small bubbles come up underneath the paint job, and that's an indication that there's some rust issues. So I had to sand it down and sand the rust off, spray it with rust preventative paint, and then fill it in with a little bit of Bondo. Like I said, I might do a video on that, but today I'm going to do an oil change on this 72 Demon. And we'll go around to the front now, and I'll show you what we're going to need to do the oil change. Okay, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little bit windy out here today, so my camera is actually blowing around on its stand just a little bit. This is my purple, plum purple with black stripe Demon. We call her Boo, and she has the 3.7 225 slant 6 Tower of Power engine, but I had it modified some. I'm going to show you what I've done to it. Okay, I had the head shaved down a little bit for more compression. It's got a Clifford 4-barrel intake, 650 Holley 4-barrel carburetor. I've had to put booster brake on it to get it to stop. I've got headers with double dual exhaust, and we're going to do the oil change, so we're going to crawl up underneath the car in just a moment. But here's a few things you need to know. First, wear clothing that you don't mind getting oil on. You want to wear a ball cap too, so you don't bump your head, or so you don't get oil or something like that on your hair. You might want to wear some eye protection and a glove. I have the tools that I need here. I use a glove, I use a funnel, the bolt on the oil pan is a 7/8 wrench, and I use the large filter remover. Now this is for a new model right here, a smaller filter, and this one is for catch-all. If you get one that's really hard to come off, you can use this right here. You're going to need a pan to catch the oil in so you can recycle it. You're going to need your oil filter. You're going to need your motor oil. This car takes 5 quarts. Some take 6 and 7, so you're going to have to check with your manual and find out exactly how many is needed. And then you're going to need a quart or a container to put your used motor oil in. Never pour it down on the ground or in the curb, storm drain and that kind of crazy stuff. Always recycle your motor oil. I use this one glove here to catch when I break my nut loose on the pan. You're always going to get a little oil on your hand. If you do get oil on your hand, be sure to wash your hands off like as soon as you get out from underneath the car. So we're going to crawl up underneath here, and we're going to get this going. So as you can see, I have the metal racks that I've driven up on. You want to make sure that you're safe underneath your car. I even have the car in park. I had the park brake on, and I even chalked the back tire for my safety. You don't want to have this car come down on top of you. Unfortunately, it does happen, and it's usually a very bad ending. So we're going to get up in here, and we're going to get to this nut right here. And we're going to break it loose. Alright. And we're going to let it drain in the pan. Like I said, As you can see here, there's a little bit of oil that got on my glove and not on my hand, so I'll clean that off. But you want to have a blanket that you can lay on too, especially if there's any possibility of fire ants. It's going to drain for a minute. Once it drains, I'm going to put the bolt back on and tighten it up, and then we'll go to the top side and take out the filter. I always like to take a rag and wipe off my bolt, wipe the threads off, make sure there's no dirt, because you don't want this to leak. One reason a lot of us old timers like to do our own oil changes is in the past mechanics would strip this bolt and then your car would really leak, and you don't want to run out of oil. You know what could happen to your motor if you run out of oil. Plus, I don't know what they charge now at a dealership to change oil in a car, but I think I have about $26 in the filter and the oil, and I have the time on my hands, so I don't mind doing it myself. I actually enjoy doing it because I know the quality of work that I can do versus having an unknown mechanic work on my car. It's just about ready to stop draining, but I want to get all of it out. Now, once it's drained and I put this bolt back on, I need to slide my container over to where the, in this car, the oil filter is actually, you have to get it from the top side. So you'll have some leakage once you pull the filter because it's actually upside down. And it'll drip down on the ground. So you want to slide your pan over underneath your filter before you remove the filter. Okay, so I'm about done. It's about drained out. I'm gonna go ahead and get started in. Only hand start this thing. Never put a wrench to it until you get it in and you're sure that it's not cross-threaded. You don't want that to happen. I'm gonna move my pan over to where my filter is, and then I'm gonna tighten this bolt up. And it only needs to be about that tight. You don't want to over tighten it either. And then we're going to go up to the top side and get it, the filter off, and then new filter on, and then refill the motor oil in the engine. Okay, so your filter is going to be right there. I think you can see it. Let me hold on just a second. See my screen. Right there's your filter right beside the distributor cap. So I'm gonna reach in, I'm gonna break that loose. I got my pan, I can see I got my pan below it for it to drip, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. We're going to use the large filter remover. So you got to maneuver it in between the wires here, and then you'll grab it like so, and you'll slide it. Let's see, I may have it backwards, upside down. Yeah, I think so. So you'll grab it, like that, and then you'll watch your wires. You don't pull any wires loose, and turn it about 1/8 of a turn each time until it gets loose. And I think I can get it with my hand now. So I'll come up with my wrench and get down here. Yep, it's loose enough where I can get it now. And I don't know if you can see it dripping, but it's draining. I'll let it drain a little bit and shake it around before I pull it off. Okay, there it goes. There, you can see it draining really good now. And that's why you put your catch pan below it, because there's quite a bit of oil, used oil in these filters. And that should be about right. So I'm going to come up, bring it up out of the way, and then I'm going to set it here temporarily. I'm going to drain this also into my recycled oil. So the new filter I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually a cover on it that I removed. And you want to take the cover off. Make sure that this gasket is on. You'll have a little bit of oil leaking around here on this seal. You can clean it off. Use a little bit of it to seal this, to put it on your rubber gasket here. Okay. Trying to get it all over your hands. Alright, now we're going to put the new one on. Basically the same way we took the other one off, just in reverse order. And then screws on. Now you can screw it on by hand tight, and usually that's tight enough. You can take and put your wrench on it and put a quarter turn on it, eighth of a turn. You don't want to turn it much, because when it gets hot it'll seal. That's probably plenty right there. Just a little nudge to it. Now this car, you can fill it here or you can fill it right there. But you take your funnel, you place it there. Make sure your funnel's clean. We're going to slowly fill this up with our oil and 5W30 or 10W40, depending on what she likes. The older cars usually like the thicker motor oil. The newer cars can handle the 5W20 or the 5W30 because of the tolerance are closer. But the older cars, you can even use the thick STP additives and those type things. It won't hurt the older cars. But you want to get all 5 quarts in this engine before you crank it up. And we're going to crank it up in just a minute. And then I'm going to leave it on the rack, because I'm going to look underneath to make sure that the filter's not leaking or the nut that I put on is not leaking before I pull it off the rack. My goal is to have this thing back on the road. I bought a Dodge Challenger, I've been driving that, and this does not have air conditioning. In North Carolina it's almost unbearable. So it's been sitting a while. I yard drive it, that kind of thing, but it's a lot of fun, gets a lot of looks. A lot of people want to know what it is. A lot of people didn't know they made a Dodge Demon back in the 70s. They only see that little Dodge Demon they made a few years ago, which was embarrassing. It's not a muscle car. And I've had Mopars, Barracudas, Roadrunners, Dusters, Demons, Darts. I've always been a Mopar guy, so I like to keep one project going. It occupies my mind, and it's something that I can work on without a lot of expense. There's not a lot of moving parts. You don't need a computer in this thing. Pretty much everything can be done if you've got a little bit of common sense. So we're going to drain this, use this funnel for the recycled oil. So we got to put this back on, and it just pops right back in place. And actually we're going to give this a shake, make sure it's working. Yep, it's working fine. Alright, so she's back in. We've got our filter on. We've got our plug in the bottom. We've got our oil. So I'm going to go ahead and crank it and check for leaks, and then we'll recycle the old motor oil, and then we'll be ready for a test drive. Alright, so we're going to get the pan underneath the motor out and drain it into the recycling container. As you can see from the quality of the oil, it was due an oil change. I'm going to go ahead and crank it and check for leaks. I'll be right back. There you have it. That's how you change the oil, old school style. Hope you enjoyed this. Give me a like, a subscribe, and a share. Please check out my other videos. If you like this one, I'll do one on the bodywork next. Thanks a lot. See you guys later.